Let's talk about men. Okay, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. It's clear to me, and I think it should be clear to anyone who's paying attention, that among the genders, men are in general uniquely privileged. Now, I'm not going to try to prove this to you right now because honestly I don't think I should have to, but also because that's not what this video is about. Despite the fact that in a very evident way men are advantaged in most cultures, there are a host of issues that men face that go vastly underreported and overlooked. And to be fair, there have been many groups formed to try to bring attention to these issues. The problem here is a lot of men's advocacy groups operate as a reaction to things like feminism and related movements. Many of these groups assert that men are in fact not privileged, and either that the alleged disadvantages that women face are exaggerated or that men have just as many problems as women. Some of these groups even go so far as to blame feminism or women in general for their problems. Basically what I'm getting at is that it's rare to find these issues talked about outside of this man versus women context. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen it before. It's like instead of trying to solve anybody's problems, we're having a race to see who's got it worse. And once we think we've decided who's got it worse and fuck the other group, they obviously don't matter anymore, which is clearly not the way that we should be thinking about this. So I said recently that my channel is not intended to be informative or educational, but I want to take the time to talk about some issues that men face. And I'm not trying to compare them to any other group. I'm not trying to say something's worse than something else. I'm just saying that these are actual real issues that people face and people don't really talk about them that much. So let's talk about it. So in my view, one of the most notable contributing factors to a lot of the issues that men face is this unrealistic and destructive view of manhood and masculinity that we have. And we can talk about how this came to be, but this is a notion that has been and continues to be perpetuated by both men and women. And one of the results of this is a negative effect to both mental and physical health, due both to the activities that men participate in order to gain status, and also because men are much more reluctant to be perceived as victims. Men have a shorter lifespan than women, men abuse drugs more than women, men commit suicide more than women, men are more likely to be homeless, and many health issues specific to men are under-researched and under-discussed. But perhaps the most conspicuous way that men are discriminated against is when it comes to legal and criminal justice systems. For example, in most countries, the legal definition of rape specifically says that it can only happen to women. And in the ones that do include men, it specifically defines it as being penetrated. Being made to penetrate someone is considered a different, lesser category. But in my view, if someone forces you to have sex with them, that's rape. It doesn't matter who's being penetrated. According to a CDC study from 2010, 1 in 21 men have been made to penetrate someone else in their lifetime. In fact, that same study estimated that the number of men who were made to penetrate someone else that year is very close to the number of women who were raped that year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that men get raped more or as often as women, because that's not true, and in fact that study clearly shows that. But the point is, rape and sexual assault against men is a much bigger problem than a lot of people give it credit for. And one of the reasons for that is because almost no country has a fair definition of what rape is. Speaking of, prison rape is also a huge problem for men, and in fact some studies say that if you include prison rape, that men do get raped more than women. Of course, this is almost always male perpetrators as well, but it's still a men's issue because men are more likely to go to prison in the first place. In general, men get harsher penalties than women and other genders for the same crime. In fact, men are more likely to be arrested for the same crimes in the first place. In the good old US of A, where we like killing folks, men are far more likely to get the death penalty than anybody else. Other ways the law can disadvantage men is courts almost never granting custody of children to men in divorce cases, and the law only requiring men to register for the draft. And there are other things we can talk about, but I just wanted to give you a basic idea. Now, like I said, I specifically want to avoid this man versus woman mentality. I'm not one of those guys that wants to be like, oh, we have it just as bad. That's not the point. And don't get me wrong, sometimes guys complain about dumb shit. Like fucking, why do I have to pay for your dinner? Like, fuck off. And men's groups are often pretty good at cherry picking data and sometimes straight up making shit up. To be fair, feminists do that too sometimes. But the fact remains that there are some real issues specific to men, and those issues are often overlooked and just not talked about that much. And the rare times people do talk about it, it's usually just people yelling stupid shit back and forth. What we need to do is acknowledge privilege where it occurs, and for men, that's a lot of places. But also acknowledge issues like these in an honest way. It's not us versus them. We can work together to figure fix everybody's shit. That's just me though. I want to know what you think though. Drop a comment. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to all of the new subscribers. How you doing? Please rate the video, thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe if you like my hair. Holla. Really, in actual real life, women have to deal with being approached and hit on and yelled at like every single day. And even if it were only greetings and compliments, you have to imagine that that gets annoying. Like every day, every single day. Like I understand everyone enjoys a genuine compliment, but every single fucking day, all day. Like I don't have to deal with that in my life. People don't just randomly yell shit at me when I walk down the street.